Today, I'm going to show you exactly what you're doing wrong with your throttle control and how to fix it. Most riders make the same mistakes with their corner entry. Mistakes that can make you slower, less confident, and in the worst case, even more dangerous. In this video, I'll break down how to combine closed throttle turning with trail braking to completely transform your riding. Whether you're chasing lap times or looking to improve your road riding, mastering this will take your skills to the next level. Stick around because by the end, I'll share a game-changing pro tip that will fine-tune your cornering for maximum control and confidence. Now let's start by addressing one of the biggest misconceptions, and that is that the throttle is only for corner exits, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Here's how it works. If you close the throttle completely, the bike slows down and your line tightens. Once you begin to crack the throttle and you stabilize your speed, you will hold a consistent radius around the corner. Once you begin to roll the throttle open and your speed increases, that opens up the line and sends you to the edge of the track or the road. Now that sounds simple, but here's where there is a lot of bad advice on the internet and where most riders get it wrong. They open the throttle too soon before they've even made the apex, which means at the very least they now won't make the apex as they've stopped the turning effect. At which point they then lean the bike to make it turn more, which gives you even less grip and causes you to crash. The key is understanding that throttle control starts before the apex, not after it. Let me show you how to combine this with trail braking and closed throttle turning to create a more controlled corner entry. So here's how you bring it all together. Trail braking. I explained in my previous video in a lot of detail how to trail brake effectively, so make sure you watch that to understand this properly. Now as you approach the corner in a straight line, you do your hardest bit of braking when you've got the most amount of grip. As you begin to lean into the corner, you gradually release the front brake all the way to the apex. Where closed throttle turning comes in is as you're trailing the brake into the corner and you're keeping the throttle closed, it's important with that last part that you keep the throttle closed all the way to the apex. Closed throttle turning is when you begin to release the brake and let the engine braking begin to stabilise the bike. This allows the bike to turn naturally. Now either just before or at the apex, depending on the corner, is when you begin to crack the throttle gently, when you're fully leant over with the most amount of lean angle. But the secret is do not accelerate hard until you're pointing exactly where you want to be going. If you imagine you're holding a gun in your hand, which is your throttle, you wouldn't pull the trigger until you're pointing exactly at the target. And this works very similarly. Now you will begin to accelerate slightly before you're pointing exactly down the track. But where I see a lot of riders going wrong is that before they're even at the apex, they begin to wind the throttle on, and all that does is send you to the edge of the track too soon. At that point, you then have to close the throttle to make the bike turn again, and then pick it up and go straight again. And this is the point where riders will crash, because they've accelerated before the apex, which is now meaning that their throttle is opening more and more and more, and what they then do as they're running out of track and heading to the outside of the track is lean the bike more. And when they lean the bike more, they give themselves even less grip, which high sides them over the top of the bike. Where that's different for a racer is as they open the throttle, they're constantly trying to find that grip. So once they open the throttle on the edge of the tyre, they're feeling the whole time for the bike to begin spinning. And then as the bike spins, they gradually lift the bike up more and more and more until they're on the fatter part of the tyre, and then they can accelerate at full throttle. It's the reverse of trail braking that I taught you last week. If you're finding this video helpful and you really want to improve your confidence and take your riding to the next level on track, make sure you check out my online course. It's packed with everything you need to know to dominate track days, from mastering throttle control and braking to improving your body position and finding the perfect line. You have to imagine that every time you're opening the throttle more and more and more, you have to keep standing the bike up more and more and more. If you don't, all that will happen is the bike will get more power and it will spin more and more and more on the side of the tyre. Now once you're at a certain lean angle, and you'll see professional racers doing this all the time, they're confident that they can keep the bike spinning at that point. But what happens for a lot of people is they'll be completely leant over, give it a big handful of throttle, which will make the bike spin so fast, it will spin out from underneath them, at which point they panic, close the throttle, which gives the bike loads more grip again, which is when the bike grips and fires them over the top. Now you know exactly how these techniques work together, let's look at the biggest mistakes I see on track and how to avoid them. The most common mistake, opening the throttle too soon and then trying to fix your line by adding more lean angle. Now here's why this is so dangerous. You have to imagine that as you begin to lean the bike more and more and more, you have less and less grip. Now if you add throttle at this point, you're asking the tyre to do too much. The tyre's already trying to make you turn as much as it can, and now when you add throttle, all that's going to do is make the bike spin from underneath you. Now in the best case scenario, this will just result in a slide, but in the worst case, it will more likely be a high side. A high side happens because as you begin to open the throttle, you've asked for too much from the tyre, it begins to spin quickly, and as it begins to spin, it steps out from underneath you, and it all happens so fast that before you realise what's happened, you close the throttle in a panic, and when you close the throttle, it spits you over the top. Now there's one mistake that I believe is wrongly taught, not only on the internet, but at schools as well. And it's honestly something that me and a lot of ex-professional racers spend 80% of our time correcting when we're teaching on track. There's a lot of technical advice out there, and some of it is great, but if I'm completely honest with you, I don't know any rider that talks to me about these things that are taught in schools. Now the one thing we spend a lot of time unteaching at schools is people accelerating far too early in the corner. In more open, faster corners, what this will effectively do is make you run to the edge of the track earlier, which, to be honest, you can probably get away with on most circuits and you won't notice it as a huge problem. But where this presents the biggest problem is in tight hairpins or late apex corners. Instead, what you need to do is keep the throttle completely closed until you finish the corner properly. The key is patience, and this is what a lot of people don't have on track. The reality is on track that you've closed the throttle, you're approaching the corner, and there's a guy in front of you that you're chasing. Because you see him getting away, all you want to do is open the throttle. But all that's going to do is send you to the edge of the track too early. So it might feel like you're losing time by keeping the throttle closed and keeping the bike turning, but the reality is there's far more time to be gained on the straight and on the exit of the corner. So what you're actually doing by keeping the throttle closed all the way into the apex is setting yourself up for a much smoother and faster exit. The more I'm teaching people about this subject, the more I've come to realise that people are always trying to find time in the two smallest areas on the circuit, and that is rushing into the corner and rushing back to the throttle too early, when the reality is the biggest amount of time is in the hard upright braking and the hard acceleration off the corner. Now I want to take your corner into the next level by focusing on your lean angle. If you imagine trying to turn a steering wheel slowly with a little bit of throttle, you'll make a really wide arc in a car. But if you take your foot off the gas and turn the steering wheel quickly, the arc tightens. Now it's the same with your bike. If you slowly lean into the corner with the throttle on a bit, you'll make a big smooth arc. If you turn in faster to maximum lean angle with a closed throttle, you'll make a really tight turn. Once you're at full lean, focus on keeping the throttle closed until you finish turning. Practicing this on flowing corners will build your confidence before you apply it to the tighter turns. But there's another important section to this. Now you've mastered keeping the throttle closed, you may find that you've stopped far too soon and you're slowing down too much. So now you have to accelerate to make it to the corner. But this is actually great because we're far more in control now, and this is all about timing and adjusting it correctly. To fix this, what we now need to do on the following lap is brake later so we carry more speed into the corner with the throttle closed and arrive at the apex at the correct speed later in the corner. But here's your challenge. On your next track day or ride, focus on staying off the throttle until your line is fully set. Let me know in the comments how it improves your riding, and don't forget to check out my online courses where I go into all of these things in much more detail. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.